Paper promises, the sunlight streaming through the attorney's office windows, felt like a mockery to Olivia Mercer. Nothing about this day deserved such brightness. She smoothed her cream silk blouse and focused on the contract before her, trying to ignore the man sitting across the polished mahogany table. Nathaniel Reed, 34, immaculately dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His expression remained unreadable as he reviewed the final clause of their arrangement. The infamous tech entrepreneur whose innovative software company was teetering on the brink of collapse after his former partner's embezzlement scandal. "Ms. Mercer, do you have any questions before we proceed?" asked Mr. Harrington, the silver-haired attorney who had drafted their agreement. Olivia straightened her shoulders. "No, the terms are clear. 1 year of marriage, public appearances, together, shared residence, access to her trust fund inheritance that required her to be married by her 28th birthday, which was exactly 3 weeks away. In exchange, she would receive 30% ownership in Reed Innovations and the freedom to pursue her environmental conservation projects without her family's interference." "Very well," Nathaniel spoke, his deep voice measured and controlled. "Shall we sign, Ms. Mercer?" "After you, Mr. Reed." He signed with a fountain pen, his signature bold and decisive. When he passed the document to her, their fingers brushed momentarily. Olivia felt nothing, exactly as it should be. 2 hours later, they stood on the steps of the courthouse, a simple platinum band on her finger and matching one on his. No guests, no celebration, just another business transaction completed. "My driver will deliver your things to the penthouse this afternoon," Nathaniel said, checking his watch. "The housekeeper has prepared the east wing for you." "Separate wings. How romantic," Olivia remarked dryly. A hint of amusement flickered in his dark eyes. "Romance wasn't in the contract, Ms. Mercer." "Olivia," she corrected. "If we're to convince the world we've had a whirlwind romance, you should probably use my first name." "Nathaniel, then." He nodded. "There's a charity gala on Friday. It will be our first public appearance. I'll be ready." They parted without further discussion. Olivia watched him walk away, his tall figure commanding attention even in the crowded street. She had just married one of Boston's most eligible bachelors, and she felt absolutely nothing. Her phone vibrated with a message from her cousin Vanessa. "Did you really do it? Marry that cold-hearted businessman to save your precious wildlife?" "Foundation?" Olivia didn't respond. Vanessa and the rest of the Mercer clan had been circling like vultures, waiting for her to miss the marriage deadline so they could contest her inheritance. Their collective shock when she announced her engagement to Nathaniel Reed had been almost worth the sacrifice of her independence. The penthouse was exactly as she had expected, sleek, modern, impersonal. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered spectacular views of the city skyline. The east wing, as promised, was spacious and private, with a separate entrance and sitting area. "Mrs. Reed," the housekeeper greeted her. "I'm Mrs. Abernathy. Please call me Olivia." "Mr. Reed left instructions that you're to have complete autonomy regarding any changes to your living space." How generous of him, Olivia thought wryly. That evening, she dined alone in her wing, reviewing proposals for the Endangered Species Protection Program her foundation was launching. The inheritance funds would finally make it possible to purchase the critical habitat areas they'd been eyeing for years. At precisely 9 o'clock, her phone rang with Nathaniel's name on the display. "Yes?" she answered. "Just confirming you're settled in. The security team has your biometrics programmed for access. Everything is fine." A brief silence followed. "Good. I'll be in Tokyo until Thursday. Mrs. Abernathy will assist with anything you need." "I appreciate the consideration, but I'm quite self-sufficient." "I never doubted that," he replied, a strange sincerity in his tone. "That's precisely why I chose you, Olivia." After they hung up, she wandered to the window, Somewhere out there, her new husband was preparing to board his private jet, continuing his life as though today hadn't irrevocably changed both their futures. Olivia fingered the platinum band. 1 year. She could manage 1 year of pretense. After all, she'd been pretending to be the perfect Mercer heiress her entire life. This marriage was simply another role to play, a means to an end for them both. What she couldn't possibly know was how completely this calculated arrangement would unravel them both. Calculated distance. The charity gala marked the first test of their charade. Olivia entered the grand ballroom of the Westbrook Hotel on Nathaniel's arm, draped in a midnight blue gown that complemented his tailored tuxedo. She had chosen it deliberately, elegant, but not attention-seeking. Everything about this marriage needed to appear authentic without drawing too much scrutiny. "Mrs. Reed, you look absolutely stunning," greeted Eleanor Blackwell, chairwoman of the Boston Arts Foundation and notorious gossip. "Such a whirlwind romance. You must tell me how you two met." Olivia smiled with practiced ease. "Nathaniel donated to my Wildlife Conservation Foundation. We connected over shared values, and I couldn't resist her passion for saving the world." Nathaniel added, his arm sliding naturally around her waist. The gesture was so smooth that for a moment Olivia almost believed him. "How wonderful," Eleanor cooed. True love found through philanthropy. As the woman drifted away to corner other guests, Nathaniel leaned close to Olivia's ear. "You're a convincing actress." "Years of Mercer family gatherings prepared me for this," she whispered back. "Pretending is second nature." His dark eyes studied her face. "I'm beginning to think there's more to you than the contract revealed, Olivia Mercer." "Reed," she corrected with a subtle smile. "I'm Olivia Reed now, remember?" For 3 weeks, they maintained their carefully choreographed dance, appearing together at social functions, exchanging pleasantries over occasional shared breakfasts, then retreating to their separate wings of the penthouse. Olivia threw herself into her foundation work, while Nathaniel focused on rebuilding his company's reputation. One evening, unable to sleep, Olivia wandered to the kitchen for tea. She was surprised to find Nathaniel there, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed documents at the counter. "Sorry," she said, turning to leave. "Stay," he offered unexpectedly. "The kitchen belongs to both of us." Olivia hesitated, then moved to prepare her tea. "Trouble sleeping. Quarterly reports," he explained, removing his glasses to rub his eyes. "The fallout from my former partner's actions is still affecting investor confidence." She noticed the fatigue etched in his face. "You've been working until 3 a.m. every night this week." Surprise flickered across his features. "You noticed the light under your office door," she explained, not admitting that she sometimes paused there, wondering about the man she had married but barely knew. While her water heated, Olivia glanced at his papers. "Have you considered approaching Takahashi Investments? They're forward-thinking and interested in sustainable technology." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. "You know Hiroshi Takahashi?" "I met him at a conservation conference in Tokyo last year. His daughter runs their environmental initiatives." A thoughtful expression crossed his face. "Would you make an introduction?" "If you'd like." When her tea was ready, Olivia surprised herself by sitting across from him instead of returning to her wing. "What happened with your former partner? The news reports were vague." Nathaniel was quiet for so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. "Marcus was like a brother to me. We built Reed Innovations from nothing. I never imagined he'd siphon company funds to cover gambling debts." The raw pain in his voice caught her off guard. This wasn't the calculated businessman she'd expected. "I'm sorry," she offered simply. He nodded, then changed the subject. "Your foundation purchased the wetland preservation site. You've been tracking my work?" "I make it a point to know how my wife spends her days," he replied, with a hint of a smile. 2 days later, Olivia received a delivery at her office. Detailed architectural plans for a research facility at the wetland site, with sustainable building materials and minimal environmental impact. The note simply read, a suggestion. She studied the plans with growing amazement. They incorporated features she had only dreamed of including and solved logistical problems she'd been struggling with for months. That evening, she left. A bottle of 20-year-old Yamazaki whiskey on his desk with a note, for when you close the Takahashi deal. Oh, slowly a pattern emerged. They still maintained their separate lives, but began leaving small acknowledgements of each other's existence. Olivia noticed that the kitchen was always stocked with her favorite Earl Grey tea. Nathaniel discovered that his dress shirts were now returned from the laundry service with his preferred light starch. At a dinner with potential investors, Olivia observed how Nathaniel treated the waitstaff with quiet respect, remembering names and asking about families. Later, when a waiter accidentally spilled water on an investor's sleeve, Nathaniel smoothly diverted attention to spare the young man embarrassment. Nathaniel, in turn, witnessed Olivia firmly, but politely, decline a donation from a manufacturing company known for environmental violations. I won't compromise my foundation's integrity, even for a substantial contribution, she had explained, unaware that he was within earshot. 1 month into their arrangement, Olivia was working late at the penthouse when she heard classical music drifting from Nathaniel's wing. Curious, she followed the sound to find him seated at a piano she hadn't realized existed, playing Chopin with surprising skill. She remained in the doorway, not wanting to interrupt, simply watching his usually guarded expression transform into something open and vulnerable. When he finished, he spoke without turning. My mother insisted on lessons, said it would teach discipline. She was right, Olivia replied softly. It's beautiful, he turned then, regarding her with an unreadable expression. There's a second movement. She understood his implicit invitation and entered the room, taking a seat on a nearby chair. As he played, something shifted in the carefully maintained distance between them, not dramatically, but enough to notice. That night, returning to her wing, Olivia caught herself thinking not of the foundation or her next project, but of the unexpected glimpse beneath Nathaniel Reed's polished exterior, a man who played Chopin at midnight and designed perfect research facilities, a man who remembered how she took her tea, a man who was becoming increasingly difficult to keep at a calculated distance. Unexpected revelations. The call came at 3:17 a.m., shattering the quiet routine they had established. Olivia was jolted awake by Nathaniel's voice on the intercom, urgent, stripped of its usual composure. Olivia, I need you. Now. She found him, in the living room, still in his business suit from the previous day, face ashen, as he spoke rapidly into his phone. When he saw her, he ended the call. What's happened? She asked, pulling her silk robe tighter. There's been an explosion at the Reed Innovations Research Facility in Cambridge. His voice was hollow. 3 researchers were working late. They're in critical condition. Without hesitation, Olivia grabbed her coat. I'll drive. The hospital emergency entrance was chaos. Reporters already gathering, security attempting to maintain order. Nathaniel moved with single-minded focus, Olivia following in his wake. Only when an administrator tried to stop her did reality intrude. Family only beyond this point. She's my wife, Nathaniel stated flatly, taking her hand. The simple contact sent an unexpected jolt through Olivia's system. In the private waiting area, Nathaniel paced like a caged predator. This wasn't an accident, he finally said, voice dangerously low. The preliminary security report shows evidence of tampering. Sabotage, Olivia whispered, stunned. Someone wanted to destroy our quantum encryption prototype. They didn't care who got hurt. In the process, the raw fury in his eyes revealed something Olivia hadn't fully understood before. Nathaniel didn't see his employees as assets on a balance sheet. He saw them as his responsibility. When the doctor arrived, Nathaniel gripped Olivia's hand so tightly she nearly gasped. The news was guardedly optimistic. All 3 researchers would survive, though one would require extensive surgeries. "I need to see them," Nathaniel insisted. The doctor hesitated. "Mr. Reed, they're heavily sedated. I need them to know they're not alone." There was something broken in his voice that made Olivia's chest tighten. She stepped forward. "Just 5 minutes, please." Later, she would remember the tenderness with which Nathaniel spoke to his injured team, promising them the best care, assuring them their jobs were secure. She would remember how his composed exterior crumbled when he thought no one was watching. Dawn was breaking when they finally returned to the penthouse. Olivia made coffee while Nathaniel showered. When he emerged, hair still damp, wearing casual clothes she'd never seen before, something had fundamentally changed between them. "Thank you," he said simply, accepting the coffee. "For what?" "Being there. You didn't have to come." "We're married, Nathaniel," she replied, the words carrying unexpected weight. He studied her face. "On paper or not, She stopped herself, uncertain where that sentence had been heading. The moment was interrupted by Nathaniel's security chief arriving with explosive news. The sabotage had been orchestrated by someone with inside knowledge of the facility. Security footage revealed a familiar face. Marcus Donovan, Nathaniel's former partner and once trusted friend. "He was supposed to be in Switzerland," Nathaniel said, disbelief etched in his features. "He returned 3 days ago under an alias," the security chief confirmed, showing evidence of Marcus's movements. Olivia watched shock transform into something harder on Nathaniel's face. "Find him." After the security team left, Nathaniel retreated to his office, locking the door. Olivia hesitated outside, hearing the crash of something being thrown against the wall. She returned to her wing, uncertain of her place in this crisis. Hours later, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. The text message chilled her blood. "Mrs. Reed, your husband destroyed my life. Now I'll take everything he loves, starting with you." Attached was a photo of her leaving her foundation office yesterday, clearly taken by someone following her. Olivia's hands trembled. Logic said to alert Nathaniel immediately, but something deeper made her hesitate. This was her first real opportunity. To prove their arrangement went beyond signatures on paper, to protect him as he had protected his employees. She contacted an old university friend who now worked in cybersecurity, sending the message details while swearing him to secrecy. Within an hour, he had traced the phone to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Boston. Olivia left a vague note about meeting a donor, then drove herself to a location 2 blocks from the warehouse. She intended only reconnaissance, photographs, to give Nathaniel's security team. But as she approached, she spotted Marcus himself entering the building with another man. The recklessness of what she did next would later terrify her. Using her phone to record, she crept close enough to hear Marcus speaking with someone whose voice she recognized with shock, her own cousin Vanessa. "Once Nathaniel's company collapses, the Mercer family can challenge Olivia's inheritance on grounds of fraud," Vanessa was saying. "You'll get your revenge, and I'll get the conservation fund. Everyone wins, except my sweet cousin," Olivia announced, stepping into view with her phone held high. "I've just sent this entire conversation to the police." The stunned silence lasted only seconds before chaos erupted. Marcus lunged for her, but Olivia had anticipated this, swinging her heavy bag with surprising force at his head. The momentary advantage gave her time to sprint for the exit, heart pounding violently in her chest. She had almost reached her car when a hand grabbed her arm, spinning her around. Vanessa's face was contorted with fury as she raised what appeared to be a taser. "You always had to be the perfect Mercer," she snarled. A screech of tires interrupted the confrontation. Nathaniel's sleek black car skidded to a halt, and he emerged with terrifying calm, his eyes colder than Olivia had ever seen. "Them, let her go." "Your wife is quite the detective." Marcus appeared behind Vanessa, blood trickling from where Olivia's bag had connected with his temple. "Found us all by herself." "How did you find me?" Olivia asked Nathaniel, still processing his timely arrival. "The GPS in your car," he replied, not taking his eyes off Marcus. "I've been tracking you since the day we married." This revelation should have angered her, but in that moment, it felt like protection rather than invasion. What happened next occurred with breathtaking speed. Vanessa lunging with the taser, Nathaniel pushing Olivia aside, taking the full voltage himself. As he collapsed, security vehicles swarmed the area, Nathaniel's team moving with military precision to subdue both Marcus and Vanessa. In the ambulance afterward, Olivia held Nathaniel's hand as paramedics checked his vital signs. "You tracked my car," she said softly. "I needed to keep you safe," he murmured, still dazed from the electrical shock. "The contract didn't specify that I couldn't care what happens to you." "No," Olivia agreed, something warm unfurling in her chest. "It didn't specify that at all." Breaking points. The media storm hit with predictable ferocity. "Tech mogul's wife confronts corporate saboteur," screamed the headlines, alongside photos of Olivia being escorted from the ambulance, her hands still clasping Nathaniel's. In the penthouse, now guarded by additional security, they faced each other across the kitchen island, both exhausted from police interviews and medical examinations. "You could have been killed," Nathaniel said, his voice controlled but with an undercurrent of something Olivia couldn't quite identify. "I was trying to protect you. That was never part of our arrangement." Olivia set down her tea with more force than necessary. "Is that what bothers you? That I went off script?" "What bothers me," he replied, leaning forward, "is the thought of Marcus or your vindictive cousin hurting you because of me." The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. For a moment neither spoke, the air between them charged with unacknowledged tension. "The board is meeting tomorrow," Nathaniel finally said, retreating to safer ground. "With Marcus's arrest and the evidence you captured, the company should stabilize. And our researchers? Improving. I've arranged for the best specialists." Olivia nodded, then surprised him with her next words. "I'd like to visit them, with you." The following week brought a fragile new normalcy. They began sharing dinner each evening, discussing their days with growing ease. Nathaniel attended a fundraiser for Olivia's foundation, genuinely impressed by her passionate speech about conservation efforts. Olivia, in turn, offered insights during a late-night strategy session as Nathaniel prepared to rebuild his company's damaged research division. It was during one such evening, papers spread across the dining table, that Nathaniel's hand brushed against hers while reaching for the same document. Neither pulled away immediately. "We should discuss the contract," Olivia said softly. Nathaniel's expression shuttered. "What about it?" "The circumstances have changed. My inheritance is secure. Now that Vanessa's plot has been exposed, your company is recovering. Perhaps we should end it?" His voice was carefully neutral. Olivia stared at their still touching hands. "I was going to suggest amendments." Before he could respond, his phone rang, the board chairman with urgent news. As Nathaniel took the call in his office, Olivia gathered the papers, trying to understand her own conflicted feelings. Their arrangement had always been temporary. Why did the thought of ending it feel like losing something precious? Nathaniel returned with unexpected news. The board had unanimously approved a merger offer from Takahashi Investments, contingent upon Nathaniel remaining as CEO of the newly formed division. "It's everything we worked for," Olivia said, genuinely. Pleased for him, there's more. Nathaniel's expression was unreadable. The merger includes establishing the headquarters in Tokyo. They want me there, overseeing the transition. The implications sank in slowly. For how long? A year, minimum, the same length as their marriage contract. Olivia forced a smile. Congratulations. It's a remarkable opportunity. Hiroshi specifically mentioned your conservation work as part of what convinced him our company's shared values. Nathaniel hesitated. He's offering substantial funding for international expansion of your foundation. That's generous. It would mean relocating your operations. The unspoken question hung between them. Would she go to Tokyo with him? Not as a contractual obligation, but as something else entirely. Before Olivia could respond, her own phone chimed with a message that made her blood run cold. The board of her foundation, influenced by her uncle William, was challenging her leadership, following the negative publicity from the warehouse incident. They can't do this, Nathaniel said after reading the message. Your foundation exists because of your inheritance. My uncle has been waiting for any excuse. The Mercer family has significant influence with several board members. Nathaniel's expression hardened. We'll fight this. We? The word felt strangely significant. Of course, he replied, as though it were obvious. I'll have legal counsel prepare— No, Olivia interrupted. This is my battle. The tension between them escalated over the next days. Nathaniel arranged meetings with influential conservationists who could pressure her board. Olivia, determined to win her fight on merit rather than connections, rebuffed his efforts. You're being stubborn, he argued during a particularly heated exchange. Use every advantage available. Like marrying you for my inheritance? The words escaped before she could stop them. Nathaniel recoiled as if struck. Is that still all? This is to you. The hurt in his eyes made her want to take it back immediately, but pride kept her silent. They retreated to their separate wings, the distance between them suddenly vast again. Olivia threw herself into preparing her defense for the foundation board meeting, while Nathaniel focused on the Takahashi merger details. 3 days later, Olivia returned from a tense preliminary hearing to find Nathaniel's assistant Diane waiting. In the penthouse, Mr. Reed asked me to inform you that he's left for Tokyo. The advance team needed his immediate presence. He's gone. Olivia couldn't mask her shock. His instructions were to pack his things and have them shipped. Diane hesitated. He also left this. She handed Olivia a sealed envelope. Inside was a single page, an amendment to their contract, removing the requirement that they maintain a shared residence. Nathaniel had already signed it. Olivia sank onto the sofa, the paper trembling in her hands. Legally, nothing significant had changed. Their marriage would continue on paper, fulfilling the requirements of her inheritance and providing stability for his company during the merger. The only difference was geographic separation. So why did it feel like everything had shattered? That night, unable to sleep, Olivia wandered to the piano room. The instrument sat silent, a ghost of the moment they had shared. On impulse, she opened the bench, searching for the Chopin sheet music. Instead, she found a leather-bound journal. Olivia knew she should close it immediately, but a glimpse of her own name caught her attention. The journal contained sketches, dozens of them, of wetland research facilities, sustainable housing concepts, and conservation projects. All were labeled as potential expansions for her foundation. The final page held a single line in Nathaniel's precise handwriting. Things I want to build with Olivia. Not for her. With her, Olivia closed the journal, her decision crystallizing. With sudden clarity, The next morning, she contacted her attorney to prepare for the foundation board meeting. Then she made a second call to Hiroshi Takahashi himself. "Mr. Takahashi," she said when he answered, "I'd like to discuss the environmental initiatives for the merged company, in person, in Tokyo." As she hung up, her gaze fell on the contract. Amendment Nathaniel had left. With deliberate movements, she tore it in half, then in half again. Some contracts couldn't be amended with signatures. Some had to be rewritten entirely. Beyond signatures, Tokyo in autumn was a tapestry of crimson and gold. The imperial gardens awash with colors that reminded Olivia of watercolor paintings. She stood at the window of Takahashi Tower, 30 stories above the bustling Shibuya district, watching the city transition from day to evening luminescence. "Mrs. Reed?" Hiroshi Takahashi's assistant bowed slightly. "Mr. Takahashi will see you now." 2 weeks had passed since her arrival in Japan, and Olivia had deliberately avoided contacting Nathaniel, instead immersing herself in meetings with environmental organizations and preparing her proposal for the Takahashi Reed Sustainability Division. Hiroshi Takahashi, silver-haired and impeccably dressed, greeted her warmly. "Your presentation yesterday impressed our board tremendously," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "Particularly your vision for regenerative business practices." "Thank you for the opportunity," Olivia replied, her calm exterior masking the nervous energy that had accompanied her since landing in Tokyo. "I must confess," Takahashi continued, "I was surprised you came alone." Olivia maintained her composure. "My husband and I sometimes work independently." "Ah, yes." Takahashi's eyes twinkled with something like amusement. "Very independently, it seems. Nathaniel-san has not mentioned your presence in Tokyo." The revelation sent a chill through her. "He doesn't know I'm here." "I assumed it was some American business strategy," Takahashi said diplomatically, "but perhaps there has been a miscommunication." Olivia recovered quickly. "When will I have the chance to present the full conservation initiative to both boards?" "Tomorrow afternoon, the final merger signing ceremony." Takahashi studied her carefully. "Nathaniel-san will be there, of course." That evening, in her hotel suite, Olivia rehearsed her presentation with meticulous attention, trying to ignore the hollow sensation in her chest. She had come to Tokyo to fight for both her foundation and something far more personal, but Nathaniel's apparent indifference made her question everything. Her phone chimed with news from Boston. Her foundation board had voted unanimously to retain her leadership, impressed by the international expansion possibilities the Takahashi partnership offered. Her uncle William had abstained from voting, as close to a surrender as the proud Mercer patriarch would ever come. The victory felt strangely empty. Morning brought rain, gentle but persistent, casting a silvery haze over the city. Olivia dressed, with particular care, a tailored emerald suit that complemented her auburn hair, now cut in a sleek bob that framed her face. The woman in the mirror looked confident, successful, and completely alone. Takahashi Tower's grand conference room was already filled with executives when she arrived. Olivia scanned the crowd, her heart stuttering when she finally glimpsed Nathaniel in deep conversation with Takahashi's daughter. He looked different somehow, thinner, with shadows beneath his eyes that hadn't been there before. When he turned and saw her, the shock on his face was unmistakable. For an endless moment, they simply stared at each other across the crowded room. Hiroshi Takahashi's welcoming speech barely registered as Olivia maintained a practiced smile, hyper-aware of Nathaniel's gaze, never leaving her. When Takahashi introduced her as the visionary conservationist whose work will form the cornerstone of our sustainability commitment, the applause seemed to come from miles away. At the podium, Olivia found her professional voice. Her presentation was flawless, passionate yet precise, outlining how the merged companies could revolutionize corporate environmental responsibility while enhancing profitability. Throughout, she never once looked directly at Nathaniel. In conclusion, she finished, "This partnership offers an unprecedented opportunity to prove that business success and environmental stewardship are not competing interests, but complementary forces." The enthusiastic response from both boards confirmed what Takahashi had already told her: the initiative would be approved. Olivia accepted congratulations from various executives, gradually working her way toward the exit, suddenly desperate for fresh air. She had almost reached the door when Nathaniel finally intercepted her. Olivia. Her name on his lips sounded like both a question and an accusation. "Nathaniel," she kept her voice steady. "Congratulations on the merger. You're in Tokyo." The obvious statement revealed his continued disbelief. The sustainability division needed direction. "And you didn't think to tell me you were coming? You didn't think to tell me you were leaving," she countered, the hurt she'd suppressed finally surfacing. Around them, curious executives pretended not to listen. Nathaniel glanced at their audience and took her elbow, guiding her toward a private terrace overlooking the rain-washed city. Once alone, the carefully constructed facades crumbled. "Why are you here, Olivia?" he asked quietly. She had rehearsed this moment countless times, but now words failed her. Instead, she reached into her briefcase and withdrew his leather journal, placing it on the small table between them. Nathaniel froze. "You found it. 'Things I want to build with Olivia,'" she quoted softly. "You weren't supposed to see that." "Why not?" His laugh held no humor. "Because it crossed the line. The contract specified a business arrangement, not—" He gestured vaguely. "Not." "What, Nathaniel?" "Not feelings." The admission seemed torn from him, not wanting more than signatures on paper. The rain intensified, drumming against the terrace covering. Olivia moved closer, close enough to see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. "I tore up your amendment," she confessed. Confusion crossed his face. "Which means?" "Which means I didn't come to Tokyo for the conservation initiative, or the foundation, or even the merger." She took a deep breath. "I came for you?" For a moment, Nathaniel remained absolutely still. Then he reached into his jacket and withdrew a folded document. "I was going to give you this today, after the signing." Olivia took it with trembling fingers. It was a dissolution of their marriage contract, requiring only her signature to terminate their arrangement. "I thought it was what you wanted," he explained, seeing her expression. "Freedom from a contract that had served its purpose." Olivia stared at the document, emotions warring within her. "Is this what you want?" "What I want," Nathaniel said slowly, "is what I wrote in that journal, to build something with you. Not because of signatures or business advantages or family inheritances, because somewhere between board meetings and hospital waiting rooms and midnight conversations, I fell in love with my wife." The document slipped from Olivia's fingers, catching in the breeze and dancing away over the terrace railing, disappearing into the Tokyo rain. "I believe that's my answer," Nathaniel said, a tentative smile forming. "Not quite," Olivia replied, closing the distance between them. "This is my answer. The kiss was nothing like either of them had imagined, not calculated or cautious, but fierce and certain, the culmination of months of gradually dismantled walls. When they finally separated, breathless and smiling, Olivia whispered, "I think we need a new contract." "What terms did you have in mind?" Nathaniel asked, his forehead resting against hers. "No terms, no conditions, no expiration date. Unconditional? Completely." Later that evening, they stood together on the balcony of Nathaniel's Tokyo apartment, the city lights reflecting in puddles below like scattered stars. "There's something I never told you," Nathaniel said. his arm wrapped around her waist. "The night before our courthouse wedding, I visited your foundation's wetland preservation site." "Why?" "I needed to understand what mattered enough to make someone agree to marry a stranger." Olivia turned to face him. "And did you understand?" "Not then," he admitted. "But standing there, watching the sunset over land you'd fought to protect, I realized I'd never cared about anything the way you cared about that place. It made me wonder what it would be like to be loved that completely." "Now you know," Olivia said simply. 6 months later, they renewed their vows at that same wetland preservation site under an arch of native wildflowers. The guest list included the recovered researchers from the Cambridge facility, Hiroshi Takahashi and his daughter, and Mrs. Abernathy, who had known all along that the east and west wings of the penthouse would eventually become one home. There was no written contract for this ceremony, no witnesses to legal documents or signatures on official papers. Instead, Olivia and Nathaniel planted 2 native oak saplings side by side at the preservation's entrance, their roots intertwining beneath the soil in ways invisible to the eye but fundamental to their survival. As the small gathering dispersed, Nathaniel took Olivia's hand, leading her to a ridge overlooking both the preservation land and the sustainable research facility they had designed together. "What happens now?" she asked, the golden sunset catching in her hair. "Now," Nathaniel replied, "we write our story without predetermined endings." "That sounds terrifyingly undefined," Olivia teased, remembering their once rigid arrangement. "It is," he smiled, the expression transforming his once guarded face. "But I've learned that the best contracts aren't the ones that protect you from loss." "What are they then?" "Some contracts bound people together with ink and obligation. Others bound them with something far more enduring, something that flourished most vibrantly